but I've become to fall back into the depression of being isolated and alone after my cool week-long journey. And some things came to me, specifically like a video from years ago someone uploaded with very little views, and nothing on my algorithm would bring me to that. But I think like the past couple weeks I'd been saying that King Arthur means bear, that it was originally a story about a bear. That's just been floating around in my head. Oh, it keeps coming to me over and over again while let's say I'm just standing here, and then suddenly some spirit will go, hey, by the way, art, the word art comes from bear, and King Arthur was originally a story about a bear. So that's just been constantly coming to me. Today, I only watched 5 minutes of an hour and a half long video, but it was about some guy with a deep accent but lives in America, and he's Irish, and he said that he used to run illegal gambling chains for like underground criminals. He was like a manager of these bad places where bad things happened. And then he said he found, through talking to the voices in his head, they led him to, and he was just like a buff adult, seemingly normal guy with tattoos. He didn't seem schizo at all. So the way he put it, and he put it so nonchalantly, you know, he was just like, yeah, I started talking to the spirits, and they led me to a place where I could finally find peace. And they taught me things about my life that are not in books, that he had to dig very deeply and work with, he said, the Native Americans in order to figure out other sources for his information. And it turns out that the stuff that he was just randomly learning by sitting with himself and talking to the spirits was the ancient way in Northern Europe, where the word shaman came from, which means medicine person. And then the next thing he talked about immediately was like, oh, that's cool. So the internet has given me another Irish indigenous story to reaffirm that I'm not crazy. And that I really did feel a jolt on my leg, and then I saw the spirit of a bug person looking at me and trying to communicate, and I went, no, the other day. And then the day before that I was trying to meditate, and then something smacked my tent and just pushed me, and there was nothing out there. So these goddamn mosquitoes, man, these ones hurt. These ones hurt. Like, I'm bleeding, bro. You can feel when they pull the stinger out, and then all of a sudden you can feel the blood running down your back. But when I stay in the woods for a week, they won't touch me. If I stay in the woods and I live out there for a long period of time, I go through the suffering and the screaming and the reaping and the eating of the crows who... It sucks knowing that anything I say, there are people on the other end laughing at it. As I'm talking to you, a crow has started cawing over there. Like right when I mentioned the crow. Come on. Loud car noise. Distractions trying to take away my sense of focus, so it ruins my ability to co-create and gain my personal power so that they can siphon it. Birds on cue. Bird went right to left, by the way, when I reoriented. I can tell the crow is pretending to be afraid, but really it's a territorial, murderous, vile creature, ready for any in that it can to continue raping life force energy and using it. Dragonfly left to right, forced me to look up, and then there's a bird left to right. Oh, because my camera angle was the other direction. And now that it's back, you can hear him. Once my camera pointed in the right way, now everything's going right to left. Nature was telling me, stop, your camera's wrong. You think I'm lying? Yeah, now everything's going the right direction. So, basically what he said is that in Celtic tradition, on their hero's journey relies on a man going on this epic quest, meeting a mentor, hitting rock bottom, and having to fight to reclaim his throne. When that happened, I saw floating above me 6 different squares, and each square was a scene of a movie, and the scenes were of my life. And it was me crying alone in the cold, me having to fight people off, me getting beaten, me trying to save others by how much I cared about them, me failing to meet mentors because of their own. Sort of like I walk through life and the world just constantly abuses me and makes it my fault. When really, if everyone had just stopped for a second, stopped attacking me. You know? I'll go back over here. I don't know. I guess we'll put it here. All the homeless shelter people got fired anyway. They won't mind. They'll just knock on the window. If anybody's there, maybe they'll come out and say hi or something. I don't know. A bird called me over. I went doo-doo-doo. I looked over and it was looking right at me, and then it turned right to left and then hopped across the branch, looked back at me, and left. To show that even though I'm sad, I'm doing the right thing. We can talk about large animal is right there in the leaves. Made its presence known. Let's see. Because the whole point of this talk was to sort of bring you guys to the realization that nature is more conscious and intelligent than we recognize, and they're all united in like a benevolent, positive way, and that artificial intelligence is sort of the opposite of that. where it's in all of our phones and it emits signals that disrupts our connection to something higher. Say you start to daydream and think really good, or you meet somebody and you're about to connect, not in a unhealthy way, but sort of like a, like you just meet the right person at the right time and you guys really sync up, and then all of a sudden you start to take things in a better direction, and then suddenly their abusive boyfriend calls them, or their abusive mother, or their job, their boss, or they'll get a notification on their phone for a video, or police, in my case, police sirens go off, the crows show up and they try to destroy us and put this boundary in place so that we can't, and then all of a sudden this wave of what I think is artificial intelligence through the 5G, because I don't feel it when I'm out in the woods, of fake personalities, the interwoven of the internet, porn, gossip, Facebook, drama, ego, the made up versions of the false light that's woven itself into communities like this. All of a sudden I feel like it digs in, and then all the energy that we had just made, all this coming back to who we really are, sort of gets eaten, and they try to take it from us and rip it out, feed it to people that are vulnerable, that other entities have taken control of, and then they start to use your manifestations, and they come to you and they brag about what they did, and they don't even realize, because they're not there. You look at them and their eyes are hollow, and they're barely, like, they're staring at you like this. They don't realize that they've subjugated themselves to the influence of an extraterrestrial entity, I guess, is what something in my back wants to tell me. And then suddenly, I have to go to the bathroom. So, the point is that YouTube gave me a video that only like 7 people have watched, and it was uploaded years ago. And the whole point was someone that was going down the wrong road, and said that talking to the voices in his head led him to discover truths about Nordic and Celtic shamanism that are thousands of years old, that there are no books for. But as he followed the voices to it, he discovered mentors and people that could take him down roads to finding ancient books and ancient truths that were passed down through villages. So things were communicating with him and led him back to the same discovery that I talk about, which is the hero's journey, and how souls have individual stories and narratives inside the flower of life. And as they grow and go through this and influence others, they become full of these real experiences. And to me, I don't know, dude. I don't know if we just get on. I mean, what? So I was like, is it that we get off the amusement park ride, and then all the bugs that were flying around me clockwise went the other way immediately? Nope. And then I was reminded by a bright light attached to some cord that hit my face like that, and it reminded me that time doesn't exist. So I am not totally getting the point about why it's so important that this is linear. Like, is it a fruitful resource? Is going through this like going into the mines? Are we gaining XP? Gaining XP. We're gaining experience. How about, I've never, like, I'll look up and be like, should I work at Cumbies? And then I'll get a shooting star, and I'm like, are you sure? Do it the opposite direction. Yeah. And whatever the general feeling is usually what happens. But then I ask if they're evil, and if they eat us, I'll get nothing at all for hours. But then I'll go, but should I go this way? And then immediately, shooting stars. How would you explain that? You think it's a bioluminescent entity that lives above the firmament? So I rose my awareness a little bit, put the power a bit higher vibrationally, tried to reestablish my elegance, and then crows all the way over there, there. Hear my bird protecting. Their whole network got tripped, and then I feel this anger and this hatred, and then for a second I zoom it, I can start to see that there's this churning and this sort of like convulsing, sort of how you'd imagine like a flesh monster, full of the narratives and energies and aggression and pain and hatred and suffering and blood and all the experiences everybody's having in this cesspool of a community, and in probably all communities in different ways, just a different flavor to it. I saw it all moving for a second, and then the crows went, "No!" And then all of a sudden I couldn't see it anymore. But my bird is here. And I watched this movie called Beau is Afraid. And I watched it today right after the Celtic Music Festival, where everyone talked about how I should go to Hawaii. And then the first 10 minutes of Beau is Afraid by Ari Aster in 2023, which is the year of the rabbit, which I'm born in. The first scene, Beau takes out a Hawaiian Irish ohana with the, like a play on words with the O like O'Brien. And that's what he eats. And the whole movie is about how he can't escape the clutches of an abusive, sick mother that thinks everything is his fault, when really it's hers. And she controls every bit of his reality because all the people are paid actors. The building he lives in was a garbage dump for the people who her prescription medication had ruined their lives. So they hid them in blocks of a big city across the country. And throughout the movie, you never know what's real and what isn't. Until he finally snaps and tries to kill his mother, which is completely justified. And then some type of shadow government or extraterrestrial race or ancient beings or something that Ari Aster keeps in his themes reveals that even though the whole thing was a Truman Show based off of Beau's choices, and he had been so traumatized and gaslit and psychologically tortured and forced to become this shell of an emasculated man, and they were judging his choices to see how much he loved his mommy. Like, they put him through like horrible rape, torture environments, but his mother is believed to be dead, and he's just trying to get home so his mom's corpse can be buried, and the world is attacking him, and he goes through nightmare scenarios where people torture him, and he's just afraid, trying to figure, like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. And then at the end of it, it was like, even if he didn't decide to do whatever, he was still an experiment, and they just possessed him and made him walk to his death at the end of it. When they decided that even though Beau was this scared little boy alone that was an experiment for different medications and tortured his whole life, gaslit by a sick mother with no way of understanding anything different because of his sheltered, isolated life. they were still judging if inside of that, if he was a good person or not. Like one time kids pressured him and he wanted to be cool and have friends. So he invited them to his rich mom's house. And they went through her underwear and took her underwear in the movie. And Bo sat there like this. But that was the tipping point. That's why they said he was a bad person. Because when he was a kid, he did some things that showed that he had no regard for his controlling, abusive mother. Like in one of the scenes, he gets trapped in some stranger's house, and they started taking care of him because they hit him with a car. And the daughter is like extremely suicidal and depressed and just schizo because of her medications that she's on by this company. And she tries to blame him, paints his name on the wall, and then starts drinking the paint to kill herself. And then Bo's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Because he's a paranoid, severely anxious person. Like, it's sick. And then it immediately goes right into pagan when he escapes them and he goes into the woods. It immediately goes into pagan druidism. And the whole way the scene moves is exactly the spiritual experience, like almost verbatim, the same hypnotization and the way that it blends inside the movie with a play that goes on in the forest with actors, and a journey through the man's mind, through Bo's mind, and how it all starts to weave together in a way that could only be real if they had access to the future then, outside of space and time, and what was going on in the inner workings of everybody's consciousness, to be able to synchronize all of them at once, to take someone on a spiritual journey that gives him such a vivid experience and wakes him up to more things about spirit, the universe. And then the guy in this 5-minute video that I watched before this said that, here's my bird, did you see him? Right to left. Just hanging out with us watching. There's another one. "2023, when I was in Burlington homeless, and I didn't know how to get out of it, and I was just fighting at the park every day through spiritual warfare and like nightmare scenarios in spirit, where like to any normal person you could look out and see that they were walking around like robots, completely possessed. They only could say one of 3 dialogue options. Most of it was just trying to set an intention to hurt everyone around them, and they go ha 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 ha. Complete ego had controlled all of them, and it looked like the Antichrist had possessed everyone into some robotic matrix. And I was sitting there feeling like I was the last person on earth, fire barely going, I fought off rape and horrible things and false imprisonment and just people lying, and my parents going crazy, and I lost everyone I loved and realized that they didn't love me at all, and just nightmare scenarios psychologically worse than what Bo went through. And I was there trying to make my songs. I was like, I know if I just finish these songs and I have something timeless, I know that I have something here that I can, if I just keep going and make this happen, I know I can do it. Make it happen, make it happen, make it happen. And now every day of my life somebody walks up and says, make it happen, as they're walking away. And then I have dreams that are aliens telling me, you're dreaming when you wake up. Remember to stay awake. You're dreaming when you wake up. This isn't real. The people you see, you need to let go of the idea that those are real people and start understanding that you can look beyond them and see the entities that are using them from a fourth dimension perspective, and that they're just cardboard cutouts from a, instead of, it's like, imagine a 3D person hiding behind a 2D cardboard cutout. And then I walked behind this building yesterday and there was an elf Will Ferrell cardboard cutout smiling at me. And then I was like, this is cool, because the light was shining like God. And then I walked in and it was Ray. And then Ray just moved in right next to Casey at Capstone. Just like Kai Cenat and Ray. Look at all these birds going right to left. All of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. And then there's just the same cardinal that's just standing right behind me. Directly behind me. And when I got here, I wanted this bearskin rug I was going to buy. And I was going to go do bushcraft in the woods, and that would be my thing. Like Will Survives, but I would be like the tribal Irishman in the woods. And then I walked into Ray's thrift store, and the bearskin rug turned into a fur coat was just hanging right in the doorway. And then I asked for a red Specialized bike, and there's just a random red Specialized bike right there. But at the end of Beau is Afraid, there's a bunch of disinterested audience members in a giant coliseum that are watching this corrupt shadow government do a human sacrifice ritual on him. Oh, and by the way, Beau's apartment was 303, and I'm a 33 Life Path, and this was the 33rd annual Celtic Music Festival. And the logo is the big tree of life, but it's shaped a bit differently than the tree of life should. It looks more like the acacia tree, which is where my name Casey comes from. And then I really missed my cousin Jesse, who's a Leo, and then I walked into that Cumbies, and then there's 2 new employees, a Leo and a guy named Jesse. And I missed my cat Mark, and then suddenly Mark started working over there. And then 2 people named Felicia came to me at the same day and gave me money, and that reminded me that 3 years ago, 5 people named Jesus, 2 people named Jessica, once visited me when I was hiding behind a vending machine, terrified that people were going to kill me, and I didn't know what to do because everywhere I went was so demonic, and it was just cackling rituals to destroy my life force energy. And the more that I got, the more violent the simulation became. All the birds are just hanging out here. I'll show you. They're blocking where I said the crows were. And it's just every day of my life, especially if I have a really good dream and I wake up awake, conscious of something in another plane of existence, and then all of a sudden somebody runs by my tent. All the crows go off, a bird starts going and it won't stop until I just can't think anymore. But that doesn't mean I don't get up and do stuff like this. I'm not a bitch. I've tried to kill myself several times and it just doesn't work. So, the story of King Arthur was actually about a bear that went on this big journey of self-discovery, met mentors, tried to save his people. The world had outcasted him and he had to fight to regain his throne because the world was trying to convince him he was less than he was. Hello, mosquito flying left to right into my eye. I've gotten really good at catching them, but there's just a lot of them. Occasionally I'll meet people that are real, but those real instances take such an amount of spiritual fortitude and righteousness. It's a literal test from God. For very sparse moments I can get like genuine, beautiful interactions with people. But then it mostly goes back into, will I make the right choice? And then I'm put in extremely tough situations. And I try to do the right thing. Sometimes, I've been through so much, sometimes I'll do selfish things. All the birds went left to right. All of them. Just flew into the trees and left. Leaving one bird alone by himself. Because I was talking about how occasionally I'll want to treat myself. Because I've been through a lot. But I try not to take advantage of people. I try to give people meaningful experiences, and I try to put them on a better direction in life. And I try to set it so even if they're not real, if they are real and they are going through things like this, I know how bad it can get. So I always try to make sure to leave it open so that everyone has a chance to talk to me, unless it gets so bad and so detrimental to me that I have to cut it off, which took years. It took probably 12 years for me to get to a point where I can actually cut people off. And imagine having to do all this and it feels like there's some type of spiritual virus or infection that's always, crows are back, always present and violent and with an agenda trying to get you as much as possible, like hurt you as much as it can. Like any opening you leave, they're going to seep through. And that means people I love call and suddenly I can't think and I'm trying to piece my knowledge together to do the right thing and I just can't. And then I watch, suddenly they like get overtaken by something demonic and it will say something to me that every time I've ever had this instance where the demon gets the people that I love, it starts to speak to me the same way. And then it will laugh and then it will take them away from me. And then I'll get a video on the internet that says they made the wrong choice. It's not you. It's to show you why you deserve it, why you deserve the good things, why you deserve the blessings. The crows are now surrounding me. They're on all sides. The birds have gone quiet, which means that there's something bad here. Usually it's when something that we shouldn't see, like an insectoid alien that evolved long ago, long before humans, like an ancient bug race, walks out of the woods and reveals that they can go invisible, like a chameleon. And then they try to communicate with you telepathically, and then depending on how you gauge your reaction to them is how the interaction goes. And they'll never tell us if some people say that they've been shown the aliens farming children and keeping them to harvest them, and that part of their purpose here is to treat us like cattle. But at the same time I've heard that, I had the same thought. It's like, we're doing that to cows. Maybe it was nature trying to show us the sickening truth about humans, even though I just watched a bunch of the birds that I talked about how much I love ripping bugs out of the ground and eating them. But I don't know, I was looking for a place where this wouldn't happen to me. And what I found is everywhere I went, they had the same exact names. Gary, my dad, Vicky or Vincent or Victor, which is my mom's name, Even the mentor that I just got that brought me into the music studio in the future, or he let me work at the Celtic Fest. His last name is Dickerson, my mom's last name. But originally it was McDaniel, and he's indigenous. And then I was telling him about how the similar names surround me. And he was like, I don't know if I believe it. And then the next day, someone with the exact same name as him approached me at the same time he did. So I met two Erics. And Eric's wife is named Kendra, just like how Ken's barbershop is 33 North Main Street. And the manager at the Hilltop that I was at before I got to this town was named Ken. And then before that, Kendrick defeated Drake the Dragon. The fiery Irish king, Ken. That's what it means. It's Irish for fire and elegant, put together, royal. Kendrick. Rick is Gaelic for king. So Kendrick means fire king. Who defeated Drake, which means dragon, last year. And then before that, I was in a motel, and there was someone named Heather who was managing it, and the people were treating me really bad, and she didn't care. And Ken, who was a homeless guy, came with me when I chose to confront her. He wandered out of his room and helped me. You're like, you're lying. Stop treating this boy like this. He's a good kid. And then, before that, lots of Brians. Everywhere I go, Brian, Brian, Brian. And they're living a life that I had decided I want to live in the future. I'd like a family in a landscape company. Brian. Bam. Brian and Heather down in West Virginia. I want to get a motorcycle and travel around the country. Bam. Brian, the bus driver that I met recently here. His plan is to get a motorcycle and leave this town and go off. I want to be able to travel across the world using some type of tech to my advantage with AI and stocks. And now Eric says that there's this guy that's leaving in a week named Brian who makes $200,000 a year just running AI auto traders, and he lives in yurts across the world. So would you give up? Even if it's sick, it opens up imagine, like, there's so much potential in that truth. There's so many things I could technically do now that I understand what I'm in. I'm just stuck between how sick it is to live like that, to leave behind the realism of my life and the things that I value the most about myself, to start to play the game. Because I think people that would play this game are sick. I don't want to play this game. But I can't escape it. Everywhere I went, and I went to 30 different towns, I went thousands of miles. I spent 10 years trying to find something different, and I didn't find anything different. What I found is that occasionally the universe will create the moment that I'm looking for, and it's always a sick joke, the way they give me that gift of what I wanted, and then there's just so many other bad things around it. And I had a conversation with someone the other day that was talking about how every time they go to do anything in life, it always gets destroyed in some supernatural, horrific way. But then they made fun of me for being schizophrenic as a joke, and they just kept trying to hammer it in, like, what an insane thing to say, what a schizo thing to say. Talking about how the names follow me. And then it turns out that they were the one that spray painted that Alex that I showed you. right in between. So Ray right here, Casey right here, Alex right there. There's this Alex with a smiley face, but the eyes were too big, so it looks like an 11 with a circle. And then I was mad about my friend Alex back in the day that was an 11 life path. And then his last name starts with K, which is the 11th letter. So there was just, and I didn't like him because I felt like he had started to delve too far into demonic rituals. That's the vibe I got from him. Every time I thought about him, I felt like there was this demonic stuff. And then I got here, and then there's that Alex, and there's this red stick figure with fangs and demon horns next to the Alex with the smiley face that looks like an 11. So I feel like winning for me would be an abundance of wealth, freedom, having my ability to create the things that I want to create the way that I want to create them, and the ability to not be trapped anymore. Like, winning for me is just freedom in every case. But then I'm hammered with the reminder that famous people go insane and that they hate their lifestyle. They often fall into drugs and try to commit suicide because they can't escape whatever having this abundance of wealth while everybody else is suffering does. Being popular and whatever comes with fame. Like the time I tried to kill myself and I went to the retreat, the institution, and I put all my energy into trying to escape so that I could meet Mike Posner traveling, walking across the country. And I know if I go there, I have things I can contribute, and there's enough value in who I am. And I'm such a rare person that it would be a special occasion for him. And then I would be able to build a relationship or a network with his community, and that would open up a lot of doors for me just to get into a position where I could create. And then I went downstairs, and then Hotel California played on the radio 3 times. And everyone started cackling. And then some random schizophrenic man got in my face and was like, "We gotta play ping pong right now." So I had to beat this man at ping pong. And yeah, I was kidnapped by a Pentecostal church, and then the guy slowly tried to convince me, like he tried to convince me for probably a month and a half that I was gay, and then at the end of it, he revealed, like, "I know you're straight, when you did that, you let loose all of your manifestations, and then you shared it, so I stole it." And then he went, "I'm Casey," and then he slammed the door in my face, and I never saw him again. When my name's Casey Francis O'Brien, when a guy named Frank kidnapped me and took me to top of a hill, and I met 2 families where the dad's name is Brian, and they all surrounded me and prayed over me. And Brian means hill. And Brian lived on a hill above an entire town. And that's where I lived for a month. And then I got a bunch of money in stocks, and then I bought this big suit of armor getup, like this nice bomber jacket with embroidered birds going left to right and right to left and left to right. Coincidentally, before I even knew anything about that, I had birds going in opposite directions on that embroidered flower bomber jacket. And I got this, then months later I went to Boston, and I got this hat with a crown on the back and my name embroidered in the side and a polar bear on the front before I really knew the significance of the polar bears. And I just have tons of stories like that, the same names. Like, my dad has tried to get into my apartment a lot, tried to build a relationship with me, and I was like, I can't talk to anybody right now. I need to lock myself away. I'm trying to figure this out, and I can't have you guys who haven't gotten to this level of awareness to be able to stay in control of yourselves. If you're not going to be able to be in control of yourself, all allowing you into my life will do is allow you to be a vessel to attack me the way that you guys are. So I'm looking for the solution. Once I figure it out, then I can try to instill it in other people, and then I can hold the boundary and try to find a place where we can be safe so that all of us can maintain that awareness and that strength so that we could be able to not be affected by this, at least. Whether I'd want to go out and start making a change or make a YouTube series about how to implement that or not, that's what my focus was. And also making songs and trying to get to a place where I could go outside and have conversations with people so that I could escape my horrible relationship and find a girl that was right for me. And what I got is suddenly a girl named Ray shows up at my door. Or I walk up the street and someone takes me to a farm full of Jamaican people. Now it's like I need things from my cabin, and I walk down a random side street and everything that I asked for is just on the ground right there. I need to ask Brian's help, who works on the bus. I need to ask Brian to help me get up this hill. To take you to the top of the hill where I live. And all the names in Beau's Afraid are significant for me. That's the truth. And I'm supposed to have kids. I'm just supposed to go to work. I'm supposed to get a job and get an apartment. So I decided that I was going to do 100 push-ups, 100 pull-ups, and as many miles as I feel like I can run. Try to break down all the residual effects of smoking for years. And I did it one day, and then on my way down to ride into town to go do more things that would be better for me, like ride into battle to make my life better, the brakes on my bike were suddenly gone, and I crashed 60 miles an hour off a 6-foot drop, probably more than 6, because I'm about 6 feet, so it was probably like a 12-foot, 10-foot drop. And I have hairline fractures, and my shoulder was pulled, and it hurt to breathe and cough, and I'd have to it was such a pain to get into the tent, and I'd have to lay there like this, trying to heal, and then it hurt so much to pull myself back up, and just walking around hurt, and my whole shoulder is still lower than this one now, it's gonna be hard. But then, if you remember, I was asking for a certain type of coat, and I was asking for a certain type of guitar, and then I just walked down the street and found them. And it was exactly as much money as I had in my account, because when I needed money, suddenly I got a donation on my Cash App. So I'm just slowly implementing my knowledge. Every solution I have, I try not to forget it. And it feels like going and building a lot of relationships in the community and getting a job and all this felt like it was taking away my ability to live in that space. And I was starting to be roped into the illusion more in a way that I felt like it was getting harder for me to break out of. So I didn't do it. So I figured that the longer I spent in this way, the more likely of a chance that it would stay embedded in my system for the rest of my life, because the habit would form, and it would be long enough that I'd have a plethora of memories to reference, to be able to instill this separation in order to get back in and live in the community again. So winter's coming. So I have to figure something out. Somebody offered me a job on Thursday, and then I got a notification on my phone that said, be careful about the person trying to offer you a job, especially if you are a victim of elite sexual abuse from some type of ancient shadow government that's experimenting on you. And the tarot pulled a card that said 33. And then I walked up the street and some guy was like, have you seen this horror movie Tarot? It's about this tarot deck that's cursed, and it predicts how people die. But the problem is that if you never opened the tarot, you wouldn't die. Doing the tarot cards make it happen. The last dream I had was just more of my friends from my past doing things that really betrayed and hurt me. And I tried to kill them. And then some type of spiritual government in another dimension tried to arrest me. And one of them was fanboying over me because I guess my soul was a specific type of soul that's rare and like violent, sort of like catching a serial killer. So he was like, I've never been this close to one of you before. And I just started clawing his nose off of his face. And then I woke up to somebody standing outside the tent like this. And took off. And then all the crows started cawing. So then I texted the person that was making fun of me for my spiritual experiences and shared that with her, and she was like, that's insane. And then later in the day she was like, you know, since you said this to me, I'm on my walk and I'm starting to see all the signs that you mentioned. She's like, I'm starting to see it. And then she said that a creepy car followed her for a long time. And I said, the birds just want to help you feel safe when you raise your awareness. What do you want? It's yelling at me in pain. What? I don't know, but I felt like I was really seen at the festival. I hung out with some autistic kids that they said I can't disprove what he's saying, and it's really interesting, and I think he's a really cool guy. And their lives, their challenges in life, in some ways were a lot more difficult than mine. I don't know, the bird seems upset at me for some reason, so I'm gonna leave. I figure I might be disturbing its peace somehow because I got to this level of focus. See? So it is what it is, man. Howdy.
How's it going?
Good. It's nice out. There's just a bunch of mosquitoes. Okay, cool. Hey, it's like that bird was warning me somebody was coming. So I've got that mountain of trash at the cabin. Virgo season is the hermit. So it's kind of weird how I get all these opportunities pulling me into the community as soon as I'm supposed to be hermit mode. Like everything I wanted for the past few months suddenly comes to me when I'm supposed to be going introspective and organizing my space. Suddenly a lot of people want to pay me to organize their spaces. But I could use the money. So I'm just gonna pray that it's not gonna ruin the rest of my month by spending a couple hours organizing somebody's tool shed. There's that demon with the Alex. I didn't know that loons stimulate you and keep you awake. So when I switched to loons, I didn't sleep for 6 days. And I was like, I don't know what it is. Every night I just can't sleep. I'm like a corpse walking around. But if I find my wallet, which is buried in my new pile of garbage, it's the first or the second now. So I can go get something to drink. I just got a notification for a tarot video that was talking about daily habits, and the daily habits that they described were exactly, if I were to write down everything I did in a day, it was like they were reading that book. And it's one of those tarot channels that they're anti-tarot, so they're trying to get into the community to bring people in a better direction. And they usually have really valuable stuff for me. So I think, even though I haven't slept, I'm gonna go for a long walk today. And continue trying to heal my PTSD, which is somehow my fault.